Welcome to another episode of Would I Buy This Again? In today's episode, I'm revisiting the Olympus E-M5 Mark III that I've reviewed on this channel somewhere last year. But before I get into that, I want to point out that next to these sort of gear review style videos, I'm also trying out some other stuff for this channel. Earlier this week, I published a video on a photo walk I did, and I'll link it up here somewhere, in which I briefly talk about the way I experience photography and how I try to instill some of that personal experience within my final images, and I'd love to hear what you think about it. So please check it out and let me know what you think. And by the way, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to my channel, as it really helps me get my videos out there, so that would be much appreciated. Thanks. Back to the E-M5 Mark III. So in last year's review about this camera, I concluded that yes, it's a great camera, but no, I probably wouldn't buy it again. And I have to say that since then, I really changed my mind about it. So that's why I wanted to do a follow-up. Because if you put out a review like that, it really feels like some kind of final verdict. And since I changed my mind, I don't want that to be the final verdict that's up on my channel. So here goes. Before I get into the things that I've changed my mind about, I quickly wanted to show you this very compact travel setup. Just to show you how compact the E-M5 Mark III is and how easily you can just have a very versatile setup to throw in any bag wherever you go. Now I have this low pro case in which I keep the E-M5 Mark III together with two lenses. I have the 20mm 1.7 from Panasonic on it here. It's a very lovely versatile lens. I've talked about this lens several times already on this channel. Next to this pancake lens, I also have the 60mm 2.8 in the case, which I use for close-ups, flowers, insects. Can even use it for portraits too. Sometimes instead of the 20mm, I'll take another compact lens, such as this 14mm 2.5 from Panasonic, if I need something a bit wider, for example. But it's just to show you that with this camera and a few compact lenses, you can have a very versatile setup in a very small case. And you can, I toss this in a backpack when I go out for the day or for the weekend with my family, and I don't want to bring my entire photo bag, but I just have this one and I have pretty much everything I need right on the go. So next to being very compact, the E-M5 Mark III has great image quality, both for stills as for video. I've already shown you quite a few photos I took with this camera in my initial review. I'll show you a bunch more at the end of this video. And as for video, I've used this camera for all of the videos I make. I think it works great for that as well. It has 4K video. It has a mic input that you can use with it. It's super lightweight, so it's very easy to hold or to use with a small tripod. I really love using it for that. I think it works really well. Furthermore, I think when I initially reviewed this camera, I didn't really appreciate it for what it was. At the time when I bought this camera, which was I think about 3 years ago, I replaced my EM1 with this camera. I wasn't too sure at the time if I wanted to upgrade to an EM1 Mark II or 3 or get something a bit cheaper. I wondered if I really need the battery grip, and so at the time when I reviewed this camera, I sort of saw it as a smaller EM1, I guess, and I really judge it as that. Right now, we're a year later, I use an EM1 Mark III for a while now as well. And what I've come to learn is that I really use this camera for different purposes, and this really has its own purpose now, and I've started to appreciate it more because of that. So while the EM1 Mark III is the camera I most often use, also with the battery grip, for example with longer lenses, if I use a telephoto lens or I use my larger zoom or primes, and that works really well with the bigger body and the option of the battery grip. But I found that for all of the stuff, like the family trips I mentioned, which I use with the case if I go on trips, but also for the video stuff and as a second camera body for when I want something lightweight next to the EM1 Mark III, for all of that stuff, this camera works really well. Also as a macro setup, I really prefer this camera over, for example, the heavier and bigger EM1 Mark III. Just because it's so lightweight and compact and I can just operate it with one hand. and have my second hand free to use with a light or to get some bushes out of the way, to get close to something. So I really love that about this camera. And I don't miss the battery grip anymore at all, to be honest. I have the just the extra hand grip with it, which I do use if I use a slightly bigger prime with it, because it's often, if I use it as a second camera, I might carry it with 7-14 2.8 Pro wide angle lens, or I have the 25 1.2 prime on it. I really do like it with a regular hand grip then, but not having the extra battery in it is not an issue for those situations. Furthermore, the build quality, it's light. Yes, it feels a bit more plasticky than earlier EM5s and the EM1 lineup, but I have to say it's getting a lot of use. It has been getting a lot of use for quite some years now. I use it for videos, using it, just carrying it around with me everywhere. It barely has a scratch. It still looks great. I didn't have a single issue with it, so I think maybe it's just the perceived build quality because it feels a bit more plasticky, but in reality it's just very well built, very durable, so I don't consider that as an obstacle anymore either. So I was thinking about this earlier this week, and I thought, what would I do if I lost this camera or it would break or whatever? Would I get something else? Would I get the same? And I immediately realized I would just want to have this camera again, either this one or its follow-up, the OM5, which has a few features more like the EM1 Mark III that this camera doesn't have, like a pro capture, stuff like that. But I definitely either want that one or this one, and not another EM1 Mark III, for example, or an OM1 to replace this one, just because of all the stuff I just mentioned. It being so compact, image quality great, it's being so lightweight, being so easy to use for video and stuff that you want to use with one hand for. So yeah, I think in the last year I've really come to appreciate this camera for what it is, rather than for what I thought it should be because of what I replaced it for, if that makes sense. So to redo the conclusion from last year's video, my conclusion is, would I buy this again? Yes, I would definitely buy this again. And hopefully now when you see this video, and I will also link this below the previous one for everyone checking that out, my current latest verdict on this camera is, yes, I would buy it again. So I hope this gives you some insight on what these EM5/OM5 series cameras can be used for, and how I think they do have a place next to the EM1/OM1 series, since you can use them for things that the other cameras might be just slightly less suitable for. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up. And again, if you haven't yet, please subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.